put one of those hash browns at the end, like Hashbrown Team Cobra Kai or something. And then send it to the internet!
Welcome to the Hashbrown Team Cobra Kai podcast. My name is Steve.
And I'm Shay.
And we'll be your hosts over the next 10 weeks as we unpack everything that's going on in the world of Cobra Kai Season 3. Now, a little bit of background. I am what you might call a Cobra Kai OG. I was on board back in the YouTube Red days, but Shay, yourself, I understand you're more of a latecomer to the party.
Well, I remember there were periods there where you talk about it nonstop, and I'd be like, "What's this Steve got? What's Steve talking about? Right? What's he on about?" And yeah, I jumped on when it first came out on Netflix, and yeah, I was pretty much hooked from the start. Watched the first 2 seasons in like I don't know, you'd say a week or two, and yeah, for me, I think I'm a bit more fortunate than you. I've been probably waiting 6 months for this 3rd season. You're probably waiting 2.5 years or something.
Well, I've been waiting something like 18 months. Yeah.
Okay, 2019.
It was like mid to late 2018. And
wow.
And as you know, like I'm not one for binging Netflix TV shows. I rarely do it, but something about Cobra Kai just spoke to me. I think it's because I'm such an 80s nut. I love the soundtrack in Cobra Kai. The nostalgia just did it for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I very much binged season 1, season 2, and I have binged season 3. And just for our audience's benefit, I know you're only up to episode 3. You're doing what I intended to do, which is to savor it, to drag it out. Whereas I watched it all in 2 nights.
Now I remember the heartache I felt when I saw the last episode of season 2, and I was like, shit, I've got to wait however many, because at that time we didn't know when the next season was going to come out. So I was like, shit, it's going to be a while since I can watch a new episode. And yeah, I don't want that empty feeling now. So I'm just trying to delay it a little bit. I'll probably watch it all in the next week or so, but I just wanted to give myself a little bit of time to just digest the episodes.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I mean, I got so far down the Cobra Kai rabbit hole back at season 1 and 2 that I actually made a Cobra Kai skateboard, which you can barely see. Fake zoom background there, but I'll post a photo onto the YouTube channel. But ultimately, I got really down the rabbit hole. I'm wearing one of my 2 Cobra Kai t-shirts, and I just fell in love with the series. But I mean, I already mentioned, why I found the show, why it really resonated with me. I mean, the characters, the character arc, the Johnny Lawrence retribution story, all these different angles, but ultimately the nostalgia, the 80s piece. I grew up watching The Karate Kid when I was like 6-7 years old. I must have watched it 100 times. And after the ending, I'd always be running around the house with, some piece of cloth wrapped around my head doing crane kicks all over the place. I mean, what was it about Cobra Kai that forced you to binge season 1 and 2 in 2 weeks, Shay?
So I remember watching it as a kid, but I wasn't as invested in it clearly as you were. I remember when you mentioned it a few times, back in 2019 or whenever it was, I was like, how good could it be, right? It's just like a TV show. You talked it up a lot. And then when I started watching it, so I thought I'd watch a couple of episodes just to see if I got hooked in. I think it does a really good job of, bringing in the older characters, but kind of creating this whole new universal storyline of the younger kids as well. And obviously there's references back to the original ones, like characters coming up that were in the original movies. But yeah, they've just done a really good job of it. I think it's got a really good balance of like humor, bit of drama, random storylines here and there. I think they've done a really good job when it comes to like rebooting an old show. There's obviously been a lot of shows back in the day they've tried to reboot them and they've just been terrible, but these guys have just done an awesome job in doing so. And I think I'm probably falling to the majority of people who are like, oh, Cobra Kai, that sounds like a terrible show, right? And then they start watching a few episodes and they're absolutely hooked. I remember after I saw it, I told a couple of friends about it and they were like me. They were like, oh, it can't be good. It looks like junk, whatever. And they watched a couple of episodes and boom, they see the first 2 seasons in like, 2 weeks, right? So they do a really good job of hooking you in and making you continuously, want to binge on it.
Definitely. And I think you're absolutely right. More often than not, reboots, whether it's a movie reboot or on the odd occasion, a movie turned TV show, they just don't do well. And my initial reaction to the announcement back in, I don't know, 2017 that there'd be a Cobra Kai series. I thought, this is going to be Cheese City.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It is to some degree. There's a lot of cheese, but it's the good kind of cheese. It's the cheese you pay, $10 for per 100 grams down at your local winery.
They do a good job, man. Yeah.
But then there is also the drama. There are the characters. And I absolutely love the fact that they were able to get pretty much everyone from Karate Kid 1 and potentially 2 and 3 to reprise their roles in the Cobra Kai TV show, because without that, it just would not have appealed to people the same way, right? So like even in I believe it was season 2, I could be wrong about that, but when the original Cobra Kai got back together and you had the late Rob Garrison playing Bobby, you had Tommy, who's now a priest, or well, actually no, he's not a priest. He insists that he's not a priest. But he's ultimately back. You had the only person missing, and I think this is because he kind of went on to mimic his character in Karate Kid 1, was Dutch, the blonde, fiery guy who would always give Daniel LaRusso a hell of a hard time. You're dead, man. You're dead. You're dead meat. That was in the change rooms ahead of the.
Is he the one that screamed out the body bag comment?
No, that's Bobby.
Bobby was
yes, Bobby. He, get him a body bag. And it was actually I forgot the band's name, but they all reprised their roles. The original the original Cobra Kai rather, in a song by
it was called Sweep. Well, I've never heard it before, but I think it's called Sweep the Leg.
Yes, it was called Sweep the Leg. I'm just looking up the band's name. So the band is called No More Kings, and it's a 2007 video. You can check it out on YouTube, and it also stars, for a brief moment, Ralph Macchio, aka Daniel LaRusso as well. It's not a bad song as well, so it's worth checking out.
Sweep the Leg, classic. No, because they were what's his name, Bill Simmons, on his podcast, Zabka, William Zabka, right? That's the guy that plays Johnny Lawrence. He was on there for an interview, and he talked about that song, and he said, they asked him to be in it, and he was like, I'll only be in it if the rest of the cast can be in there as well, and I can have some creative freedom in terms of the video. And I don't know whether it was in that interview or another one, but he always talks about how they've been pitched like a reboot of Karate Kid for so many years, him and like Ralph Macchio, right? And this was the first time they were like, shit, it actually sounds like it could be okay. And that's the one that they jumped on board. But apparently it's been so many years, they've been getting pitched the idea by so many people, and they've always said no, because they don't want to ruin, I guess, the original. And I think it's one of those rare occasions where the original stands alone, and this has really just made the original even bigger. And it's obviously brought a brand new audience to the original movies as well. Like all these kids watching Cobra Kai are like, shit, let's go back and watch the movies, with their parents. It kind of brings multiple generations together, and you can't say that too often about TV shows and movies.
No, definitely. And I've got a couple of nephews. One is 16 and the other is 18. The 16-year-old has already binged season 3, and we had a good hour and a half long conversation with him about it. I don't think we've ever been closer in 16 years of sharing air on this earth. I just have to correct myself. Tommy was played by Rob Garrison. So he's the one that passed away. He's the one that made that body bag comment. And Bobby is the priest. And he had those flowing blonde locks in the original Karate Kid, and now is devoid of a single hair on his head, but still looks great, looks fit as a fiddle, which is good to see.
There you go.
But you're absolutely right. I think there were, I suppose, hints that this might happen someday. I mean, there was the Johnny Lawrence or the William Zabka reprising his role as Johnny Lawrence in How I Met Your Mother.
I heard about that. I vaguely remember that episode, but
it's where he was dressed as a clown, and he took the makeup off, and
because Barney was obsessed with
him.
Yeah. But I think what the joke was that everyone thought that he idolized Ralph Macchio, but because he was like, the real hero is Johnny Lawrence, but everyone thought he was referring to Ralph Macchio. But I think that was the joke in it all. And it's funny because that whole concept has come back to life in, I guess, Cobra Kai in general, where Johnny's kind of like that anti-hero, right? Everyone's rooting for him, and which is obviously a bit different to the movies back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's something, I mean, I wrote an article about this. I think I called it something about other awareness rather than just self-awareness. And if you look at the world through the lens of the so-called protagonist, you might see that there's a reason for their behavior. And that's the same with all of us. You know, we all go through certain things in our upbringing, past experience, childhood. Maybe we've got genetic predispositions that make us who we are. And therefore, I think what the writers are trying to show us is that, you know, we should probably proceed in this world with a little bit more empathy for other people rather than just casting them aside as rejects and whatnot.
One of my favorite scenes, I think it was like in season 1, where I think Johnny Lawrence is talking to Miguel and he's talking about, you know, the history with him and Daniel LaRusso and the way he's
the burger place.
Yeah, well, he's giving it from his perspective, and he's pretty much like made it sound like, you know, LaRusso was the worst person, that he was the bully. Like, you'd never even think about it like that, right? But when he was describing, you're like, oh, just like you said, you're kind of looking at things from another person's point of view. And I think at that point, I was like, shit, they've done a really good job in, you know, making him such a likable character and someone that you, like you said, you want to root for across the whole way. Yeah, big time, right? And like I said, they've done a really good job in kind of bringing it all together.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, on you know, as numerous blog posts suggest, Johnny Lawrence or Daniel LaRusso was the real bully. Where do you stand on that question? Do you think Daniel LaRusso, the kid from Jersey who came over and stole Johnny's girlfriend, do you think he was the real bully? I mean, taking cheap shots and whatnot down at the beach, on the soccer field.
For me, just to kind of keep my childhood intact, Daniel LaRusso was definitely not the bully in all those movies. He was the nice guy. Wow. But like I said, I'm definitely rooting for Johnny in these new ones.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Look, I think there is always a gray area, a bit of nuance. And I think you could say that both of them were both the good guy and the bully, depending on which facts you want to omit and which facts you want to amplify. And I think that goes, that's true of society as well nowadays with so much polarization. It's like, it's easier to see only certain things and latch onto just certain beliefs and ideas that cast your side in the most favorable light and then ignore anything that may cast the other side in a favorable light as well. So
for sure.
Anyways, this is definitely not a philosophy podcast, but I'll try my best not to go down too many philosophical rabbit holes here today. But just for our audience's benefit, we're going to assume that you guys have watched season 1 and 2, because what the hell else would you be doing listening to a Cobra Kai podcast if you hadn't?
If you haven't, even if like you saw it ages ago, like you, Steve, right? Say like 5 years ago, whenever the YouTube series ended, they've got I think there's like a 20-minute summary video from Netflix to kind of talk about season 1 and season 2, and they've got the actors kind of going through that summary. So definitely worth a watch if you want to kind of bring yourself up to speed. I'm pretty sure the last episode of season 2, I'm pretty sure I watched that episode at the time, probably like 3 times after it finished, because I was like, there's just so much to like digest from that episode. And then I watched it again before I started watching season 3 as well. And yeah, man, like that last episode was one of the best episodes of anything I've ever seen. It just had like so much shit going on, and a few little cliffhangers obviously at the end that led into season 3. So I definitely recommend watching it if you haven't started watching season 3 yet.
Just on YouTube, I mean, you mentioned that 20-minute recap video. I actually came across a really cool video series that comedian and actor Josh Gad was running throughout the pandemic. It's called Reunited Apart, and it's where he basically brings together the cast of classic movies. And like, he's done I think The Breakfast Club, Wayne's World, Ghostbusters, The Goonies.
Oh, that's awesome.
All childhood favorites of mine. And he also did The Karate Kid, which went up a couple of weeks ago. So it's about a 45-minute show, and you get all these characters dialing in. And initially there's a little bit of pushback from from Ralph Macchio because he's like, well, look, Josh, we've kind of already reunited with a little show called Cobra Kai, but they force him to do it, and they just spend 45 minutes reminiscing about the old days, and even includes the character, I forgot his name, but he played Terry Silver, the evil pony-haired villain from the Karate Kid 3. So it's a really cool sort of reunion piece, and even the rest of them with the Wayne's World one and everything else worth checking out. If
for sure, no, that's awesome.
Especially if you're still in lockdown and you have surplus time on your hands.
The good thing about these episodes as well is they're so short, like relatively like 30 minutes.
That's good
or so,
and
right?
bad, because it kind of, in my case, it kind of suggests I should just binge the whole thing. Well, it's only 30 minutes, and but it's only 10. It's only 5 hours. Only 5 hours. Sure, let's just watch the whole thing in one sitting. Why not? I have nothing else to do with my life right now. Let's just do that.
Well, then
let's create a podcast about it too.
Now, there's a lot of these streaming services are kind of going back to what used to be the case, where they're releasing shows every week, as opposed to the binging, like just release a whole season at once. So,
what's your view on which one is better? Sounds like you'd be more for the former, like one per week.
I'm all for the one per week because I think it allows for a little bit of imagination and like creativity and kind of a bit more patience in life in general, where you watch an episode, you're like, all right, like got the cliffhanger, you can think about it for a while, you don't want to watch the next episode straight away. There's a little bit of pause between them. Having said that, it's always nice to just have a full season and you can just watch it whenever as well. But I know why the streaming services are doing it, because I'm pretty sure there's people signing on to Netflix for a week, watching the show they want, and then just signing off again, right? Or canceling the membership, because it's so easy to kind of stop and start these memberships.
Netflix to drip feed the episodes then?
Well, that's what I mean. Sorry, that's what I mean. That's why.
That's why they're going back to that.
Yeah. That's why. Like, I think I know Amazon Prime does it with a few of their shows and a few of the other streaming services as well. I don't know. I'm sure Netflix does it with some of their shows. But yeah, like you said, given their 30-minute episodes, they're probably just like, screw it, just dump them all on. Because they'll probably get people watching them multiple times anyway, right? Because they're so short, like us probably.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally prefer that they drip fed the episodes, only to allay me of some of my own temptation fighting issues. So I would have much rather watched it over a couple of weeks, over say 10 weeks, because I think it also creates more space for conversation. It's like, what's going to happen next? Whereas even if I try to do what you're doing, it would mean I'd have to stay away from conversations with my nephew. I'd have to stay away from Cobra Kai.
Spoiler city, man.
On the internet,
spoilers everywhere.
Media. Exactly. Spoilers absolutely everywhere. So even if you wanted to, it's difficult. Whereas if the environment was such that I could not, everybody else was getting drip fed the episodes. We'd all be on the same page.
Because back in the day when we were kids, right? You'd have your shows on a Sunday night, 7:30 at night every week. Same show, 7:30 on a Sunday, for example. Monday morning, it was free game. Like, you could say whatever you wanted because everyone knew it was on Sunday night. If you didn't watch it, people will talk about a show, right? But now it's like everyone's fucking watching things at different speeds or whatever. You just don't know what someone's watched, whether you're going to ruin something for them. You're walking on eggshells these days, man.
100%, man. Like, the last show that I really got into was Vikings, and that was at least season 4 and 5, I believe. The episodes were released weekly, one episode. I believe it was 1 or 2 episodes per week, and kind of like with The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. And that kind of worked well because it kind of gave you a bit of a breather. You're like, oh, that was cool. And then you looked forward to the following week where you get the next tranche of episodes, right? Rather than just having them all in one here. And it, again, puts everyone on the same page. There's no sort of disconnect between how many episodes have you watched, how many have I watched, can we have a conversation, can we not, and so on.
Yeah, you're right about the conversation thing. Because with that Michael Jordan the Bulls documentary, during the week between the episodes, I'd talk to people about it. You'd be like, oh, did you watch that one, blah blah, and you'd actually have a proper conversation about it. Whereas I can imagine, and it worked well because it was during lockdown, right? So it gave people that little bit of hope and excitement around, all right, next week's going to be okay because I'm going to be able to watch. It's terrible. It's sometimes you got to hold on to the smallest things, right? And that kind of, especially for NBA fans, sports fans in general, with all the lockdowns across all the different leagues, kind of gave sports fans just something to look forward to. And I remember like as in with Twitter's always full of like NBA stuff, like highlights, conversations around games, things like that. There were no games, right? And Twitter pretty much all the NBA people were talking about the Jordan documentary. That was like replacing that. Even like, you know, your ESPNs, you know, they've got their analysts arguing about, you know, players and games. They were just talking about the Michael Jordan documentary. It was awesome. It was a good little fill-in given the sports, given games went on at the time.
Yeah, well, we also produced a podcast back then called The Alley Oop Show with a couple of Australian basketball stars, and then they'd talk about The Last Dance throughout that series as well, and you know, everybody was talking about it. But like The Last Dance being a bit of a gift during 2020's lockdowns, John Hurwitz and the Cobra Kai crew decided to gift us an advanced look at Cobra Kai season 3 by moving the release date from January 8th to January the 1st. So my January the 1st, you know, I was barely hungover, which was great. I got to go stand up paddleboarding during the day, and then I settled in to 5 episodes of Cobra Kai season 3. So it was a fantastic way to start 2021, despite the challenges of last year.
Yeah, no, I was no, I'm looking forward to watching the next few episodes.
Definitely.
As well. It's definitely been a good start to the season from what I've seen.
I'll try not to spoil any.
Yeah, man, keep them to yourself.
Episodes for you. You're at episode 3, so I will.
Spoiler alert.
I will refrain from going that far into things. So let's get into episode 1. How long are we? We're about 30 minutes into this.
Hey, it's the first episode, right? You got to set the scene.
Episode. Well, let's get into it. I mean, picking things up at the end of season 2, you mentioned that high school brawl, that incredibly choreographed high school brawl. Like there was just so much going on. It was so well done, so high energy, and you know, the training, the choreography, everything that went into that, I thought was just absolutely fabulous. And of course, I was devastated by the way that episode ended up with Miguel, you know, basically breaking falling off the second level railings and essentially landing himself in hospital in a coma. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I've always I mentioned I've got a 16-year-old nephew, and I see a lot of similarities between Miguel and him. So I felt like I was personally, emotionally invested, like a lot of people, into Miguel's character. So when that happened, it's like it hit me hard, man. I was like, oh my God, my head was in my palms. I was just devastated.
I think with him, like that specific character, they've done a really good job of, you know, even though he's in Cobra Kai and, you know, they've kind of done a really good job of making him like super likable.
Nothing wrong with Cobra
as well.
Kai, man.
Well, you know what I mean? Like he kind of sits in, I wouldn't like, he doesn't sit in the middle, but he's not really on either side. Like what you kind of understand, well, what I've gathered is like both sides, they kind of feel for him a little. Like he's kind of just loved by everyone in a way, as opposed to just Cobra Kai only or the other way. So I think, they've done a really good job with his character. And I felt the same when he fell down. I was like, shit, you know, this is terrible. Like everyone was like, I was devastated as well. And like I said, I think it's because they've built up his character. I think all the characters are built up really well, but his one specifically where he's just super likable, kind of like Johnny Lawrence in a way.
Yeah, he's super likable, but I think also, you know, there were elements of him kind of delving into the so-called dark side in season 1, you know, when he effectively cheated at the All Valley tournament to win, which is something that people say Daniel LaRusso did with the illegal crane kick, and also Johnny Lawrence with his sweeping of the leg and everything else in the 1984 tournament. But I guess it just goes to show that any person can be molded into different types of character based on, you know, who they associate themselves with and so on.
But even when he did that, I think there was still that level of like innocence about him. Like he was just he was just like, he felt like he did the right thing given the way he was being taught, and like he didn't know any better. And it was kind of like he was innocent, and it wasn't really him. It wasn't really his personality and his behavior coming through. It was more about the way he was taught at the time. And I think that kind of obviously evolves a little bit in season 2 as well.
Well, wasn't there
when you get to the end of season 2? Yeah.
Well, I guess, and to paint both sides, I guess, of that story, wasn't there that part in, I believe it was season 2, when John Kreese took him on that sort of expedition to the woods, and that to snatch each other's flag, I think.
Yeah.
And he effectively had to like knock out Hawk at the very end, and he hesitated, but he did it, right? Because that's what Kreese was teaching him. And then of course Stingray came out of nowhere and won the whole thing. By the way, I don't remember if he went missing in season 2 for some reason, but he's no longer around. Like what happened to Stingray?
It looks.
You watched season 2 more recently than me.
No. So I only saw the last episode. So yeah, after he kind of obviously comes out of the school hall and just like beats up a couple of kids. You know when he does those moves. You don't hear from him after that in season 2, right? And then they obviously, I think in episode 1, season 3, they vaguely mention him. Someone mentions what happened to that teacher who hit all those kids, or that security guard or whatever he was at the school.
Yeah,
and I think they kind of left it open. I don't know if he comes back or not or anything, but they kind of but they do mention him. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's just one of those characters that just kind of fades away. Yeah, but he was pretty good entertainment. It was good value during those few of those episodes.
But yeah, so the point I was trying to make is also, that was the dark side of Miguel, but then of course at the very end of season 2, where he shows Robbie mercy.
Yeah,
he's got the teachings of Chris on one side, and then he's got the, I suppose, newfound teachings of Johnny Lawrence on the other side, who was starting to change and starting to realize the value of sometimes showing mercy, which of course backfired horribly. And you had people like Hawk and whatnot looking on, saying, "Well, look what happened when we last showed mercy. So let's go even further down the Cobra Kai line and be all about striking first, striking hard."
And we mentioned it at the start of the episode, but it's one of those shows where some of the stuff they do in it is just kind of, it's so ridiculous, but it just works. Like, the whole karate fight in the school, like that would never happen anyway, right? Like, what is going on?
Teachers standing around.
How many kids would even know karate, let alone like that many where everyone's just fighting each other, right?
Yeah. One thing I found difficult to believe was just how quickly some of these kids became like superstar fighters. Like they joined the Miyagi-Do 2 weeks ago, and then suddenly you've got Dimitri like smashing Hawk's character through the trophy cabinet, even though Hawk is arguably like 10 times a fighter to Dimitri. And he's been around so much longer.
Yeah, exactly. In what world, firstly, would that even happen? But secondly, would such a riot occur in a school? It's just like baffles me. But those things, like, they're so crazy and outlandish, but they just work in the show because you kind of find it a bit humorous as well as entertaining. And then in the third season, the first episode, there's obviously all that news reporting going on about I think they called it, there was like some like all out karate riot in the school. It's like
third season.
At the start, right? And they've got the, on TV, there's the news reporters talking about it and all of that. It's just funny how it's just crazy riot happens, and now it's just all over the news and everyone's talking about it.
Now the entire valley has turned against karate, and now you've got security. Security checkpoints at the at West Valley High School as well.
But I don't see the point of that, because I guess when you think of karate, there's rarely any weapons used, right? So it's
unless you're talking nunchucks and whatnot.
Yeah, nunchucks. Yeah, true. But then like they've obviously got the news has made the rounds. And when there's that scene where Hawk's kind of like trying to chat to the new girls that are going to the school, the freshmen or whatever they call them, and they're just like, they know his story, they know his background. They're like, you got kicked into the wall or whatever. And
even
then
though it's their first day of school, they know exactly who he is.
Exactly right. And they know Dimitri. They're like, hi Dimitri, or it's just like things like that. They're just they're a bit outlandish, but they're funny enough to kind of just, it's part of the makeup of the show, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. I think Cobra Kai, like if you're going to watch it and enjoy it, you kind of need to numb yourself to some of the, you kind of need to disassociate a little from reality. I mean, the fact that this whole thing is based around an under 18 karate tournament. I mean, I don't know about San Bernardino Valley, but here in Melbourne, Australia, under 18 karate tournament, maybe the only people in the audience are parents of the fighters, maybe some siblings, and that's about it. Whereas, you watch the Karate Kid, the 1984 thing, it's like a huge crowd and everyone's going absolutely insane. And this is something that can, create openings for you and opportunities for the rest of your life. And 30 years from now, people will remember you as the guy who won the 1984 All Valley tournament. It's like, this is not going to happen in any real world situation, but I think just checking that reality piece out the door.
It's a different world, mate. You're right.
Is well advised.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So going back to, the start of the episode, of course, it starts in a very dark way. with a montage of Miguel fighting this anonymous fighter who essentially, I suppose it's somewhat metaphorical. So that fighter in the white gi is essentially a representative of the coma that he's fighting, right? So he's doing his best to fight through that, but ultimately he's still fighting that coma. Meanwhile, Johnny Lawrence, perhaps the most everybody's favorite character, let's face it, in the Cobra Kai, he's in a very bad way. So he's like, if you think about it, his son Robbie is a fugitive. He's been expelled from school. His best student and arguably his best friend Miguel is in a coma. Miguel's mum, who Johnny was
dating
maybe he was dating. She didn't want to see him again. She wanted him to stay away from Miguel. And of course, he's basically turned his back and lost his dojo, left his car, thrown his phone away. He's gone from hero to zero very quickly. Everything that he was deriving that newfound sense of identity and confidence from was just taken away from him literally in one afternoon. And so he's in a really bad way.
He was pretty much he pretty much went back to what he was like at the start of season 1. That's pretty much where they pretty much brought him back there, or like you said, if not worse than where he was at then. Because like what I'm trying to recall, start of season 1, he was pretty much drunk all the time. He was getting into fights,
drinking
whatever,
his
right?
Coors banquet.
Exactly.
Coors Light is for sissies.
Exactly right. So
pussies. What did he say?
Pussies. Though it was like, light
it's
beers
definitely
for
not a politically correct show, which is
no, of course not. Hey,
we're just tongue in cheek.
We're just quoting the episode. And he he's pretty much back where he was. So he kind of he's got to kind of, I guess, build himself up from where he's at now and try to bring himself back to where he was before all that stuff happened. It's crazy how it just shows you how quickly you can fall. You're at the top and boom, straight away one thing happens and then he's pretty much just spiraling out of control.
Well, that's, I suppose, life is a bit like that. Sometimes you think everything's all good and then something like COVID-19 happens and your business shuts down
or a karate riot
happens at the school and it's game over. And suddenly the whole town is turning their back against this ancient art. And if you happen to own LaRusso Auto, you find that suddenly you've got no customers as well, because kicking the competition is fine if it's in an advertisement, but if you're literally kicking the competition off a second story railing, it turns out people aren't so happy with that.
It's it's true. And one of the scenes in the episode as well, which is really funny and kind of builds on that whole outlandish stuff that they do, is when they're in that I think it was the auditorium at the school, like the teacher parent conference or whatever, and the teachers are at the front, or the principal is, and they're talking about what happened, and there's all these random people in the background yelling stuff and heckling, right? One of them's like, didn't she cheat on the guy with the other girl, whatever, right? And it's just funny, like, as in, and then you see Daniel LaRusso turn around, he's like, who's saying that stuff, right? Just like all this heckling going on. I thought it was pretty funny the way they did that scene as well.
Totally. And I mean, we see a little bit more character development in season 3. Like, I feel like season 1 and 2 are very much focused around Johnny Lawrence and Miguel. Like, there was a little bit going on around, say, Robbie, a little bit going on around Sam, but I feel like season 3, Miguel I wouldn't say he takes a backseat, but I feel like a lot of other characters have kind of come a little bit more into the foreground. Their stories are being unpacked a bit more. I won't go into it because I know you haven't seen the rest of the series, but we learn a little bit more about John Kreese and his backstory. We learn a little bit more about Tori and her backstory and why she is the way she is. And I think perhaps that needed to happen, because how many seasons can you really go if you're just focusing in on, 1 or 2 characters? You kind of need to tell a lot more stories and have a lot more stuff going on. Otherwise, it's probably going to get boring, or you're going to run out of stories to tell.
But they've got there's heaps of opportunity. There's so many different stories that they could dive into, right? Because there's so many different characters, and so many different characters have their own personality and what they've gone through in the past, and they haven't really gone into any of that in the last 2 seasons, right? It's really, like you said, it's been focused on Miguel and Robbie, and obviously Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso. So I think there's plenty of opportunity. There's they could do heaps of episodes if they wanted. There's so many different avenues and angles they could go with in the show. So I think in that first episode of season 3, they pretty much, obviously Miguel's in the coma, right? Robbie, they show him, don't they? They show him that he's on the run or whatever from the police. They talk about that, right?
Robbie's on the run. He's actually stolen a 93 Dodge Caravan from the LaRusso Auto Group. And I think that's something that the new character, Daniel's cousin, what's his name? Louis LaRusso. It's actually a comedian in real life. He's half Italian, half German from New Jersey. So that's why he's got that Jersey Italian American swagger. Yeah. So he adds a bit of value to the show. But yeah, he's run off with a 93 Dodge Caravan, which he diligently removed the GPS tracking device from. So that they couldn't actually find him. But I mean, think about it. He's 16 or 17 by this point. He's been expelled from high school. He hasn't got any parents. His mom's basically in rehab. His dad's a drunk, starting fights in bars by this point. I mean, what do you make of Robbie? Because it sounds like, to me, if I was in his position, I feel like the whole world has turned its back on me, and I'm gonna figure this out on my own. It's kind of like, it ties in very well with the whole Cobra Kai ethos of strike first, strike hard, rather than, say, the Miyagi-Do ones, which is, where he honed his craft as a karate man. Yeah, because I guess to pick up in that episode, pretty much after he kicked Miguel off that balcony, he ran. No one saw him, no one caught him, and he's just completely been on the run since, right? And I think obviously you got Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence are trying to find him so that, he pretty much turns himself in so he doesn't get a harsh penalty pretty much from the police, right? So I think with him, as given his age, given the situation, and he's used to running, right? He's used to kind of being, having no family, no parents, like you said. So for him, the obvious choice is just to run and just get away from everything, right? Because he's done it before, and it's I wouldn't say it's worked for him before, but he's kind of made do with what he had before. So he's probably trying to do the same thing. But obviously, the things that probably drawing him back are Sam and the kind of relationships that he's formed with I guess the LaRusso family as well. So he's probably he's in a different position. Yeah, for sure, right? Which he doesn't have. He doesn't have money. He doesn't have a job. Like, eventually, the reality is going to catch up to him, and henceforth, why he's going to somehow hopefully find his way back to some semblance of normality. But you mentioned Johnny and Daniel working together to try and find him. It seems like that's been a bit of a running theme throughout this series, is that they tend to team up every now and again for stints, but for whatever reason, something always pulls them apart. Like in this case, they head out looking for Robbie, and they track the car down to some auto goon lot where they basically take cars and rebadge them and scratch off the VIN numbers and sell them and whatnot. And they kick everyone's butts, but then they effectively separate again over something small. It was like, oh, why do we do that? And and I think it's just, they're both very hot-headed, right? So
and it's an ongoing theme. You're right. Like, across the first 2 seasons, it happened. Like, there was always those moments where you're like, oh shit, this is it. They're gonna because I think everyone probably wants them to work together and kind of get together and do something and kind of get along, because I think I don't know, a lot of people probably cheering for that. And there's always those scenes or those episodes where it's like, oh shit, this could be the time where, they get along for, half an episode, and then boom, something happens and they separate again. I remember when they had the dinner at the Mexican restaurant. They had that double date. I think it was a Mexican restaurant, and you're like, oh shit, they're getting along now. And I can't remember what happened, but something happened, and then boom, they're separated again, and they're fucking hate each other.
Exactly why, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know, man. Some part of me is vouching for them to work together, while the other part of me just wants season 4 to end with Johnny facing Daniel in some kind of tournament or a real world situation, and Johnny just kicking Daniel's ass. Because I think by this point, I'm well and truly Cobra Kai, even if that's not necessarily a good thing.
No, for sure. And then in terms of the storylines, there's also Sam's got all those scratches on her arm, the whatever Tori was using. What was that thing she was using on her hand? The knuckle.
Whatever thing,
whatever it was. So you've got
kind of like what a punk rocker wears around their wrist when they're playing some band. But
Yeah,
she's suffering from PTSD.
yeah, big time, right? And then you've got the whole like Dimitri and Hawk situation going on, which, like you said, somehow
Apparently
Dimitri is the better
doesn't
fighter
need
now.
security.
Yeah, he's the better karate fighter now, or whatever. And Hawk's the one that has to look behind his shoulder, whatever. So it's kind of they've kind of switched the roles there a little bit. And then you've got like I said, Stingray was mentioned, but he's not in the episode. There was that girl as well. Remember the girl? Yeah, they kind of cut her out, right?
She's gone. I remember reading about the reason for that. But it's not here off the top of my head. Like, what did they actually say
I think
in terms
from
of the show?
What I remember was just like they've cut her kind of character out, and they've just this is the best way for them to do it, because there wasn't really a storyline for her moving forward, which is what I read. But who knows what the real reasons are? But that's kind of what they've said. I guess that's what's in the media.
So apparently, it wasn't her decision to leave the series. John Hurwitz, one of the producers and directors, basically said that they all love her and hinted that she might return in a later series, but everything I'm reading or coming across kind of seems a little bit ambiguous and vague as to the real reason why she left. I mean, there's like 20-minute YouTube videos on why her character left the show. So must be some
that episode,
sensitive reasons.
Essentially, episode 1 is pretty much kind of like the aftermath episode, right? Like what's the aftermath of it? Because the only one they don't show at all. I don't even know if they mention her, is Tori. In that first episode, they don't talk about her at all. But everyone else they've kind of hinted at, and you kind of see whether it's like Robbie, you see a shot of him running away or whatever, and all of that. But for her, she's the one that they don't really mention, but obviously her storyline obviously comes out later on. But in that first episode, they pretty much cover everyone else.
So they pretty much cover everyone else. Tori kind of takes a backseat until maybe a third of the way through the season. But again, with her, there is the sort of the backstory coming in, and her mum's sick. She's got to work 2 jobs. She's now been expelled from school. She's living in, next to squalor in some tiny 1-bedroom or even 1-bedroom flat somewhere. And she's only 16 or 17 years old. So you can kind of see to some degree why she is the way she is, particularly what happened with her and Sam and Robbie and Miguel, like that whole sort of, or the whole love triangle between Miguel, Sam, and Tori. And then there's the other love triangle between Robbie, Miguel, and Sam. So it's pretty crazy Venn diagram of sorts.
That's true. No, they've set it in the first episode. They've set it up well to kind of, like you said, dive a bit deeper into some of these stories and see where kind of that Daniel LaRusso, Johnny Lawrence partnership goes, if it does go anywhere. And then trying to think of where else they've kind of left it. It's
there's a whole John Kreese and Daniel LaRusso. So LaRusso is still at this point, he's unaware that Johnny's turned his back on Cobra Kai. He goes down to the dojo to speak with Johnny, and first thing he sees is this cardboard cutout of John Kreese, which is a throwback to Karate Kid 1 and 3. And essentially that whole sort of war of words ends with John Kreese saying, "Oh, but you will fight me, but you will." So that's kind of an interesting hint of things that might come our way.
To be honest, when I saw that scene, I was like, they're not going to fight here, but I feel like that was the beginning of them fighting some other time. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know, but I feel like, there was that inkling of, shit, I want to fight this. I want to fight this guy now. Totally. But they kind of held back, and they were like, all right, let's
hold back. You can't get into those big storylines.
But that's that's the feeling I got. I have no idea what happens, but that's the feeling.
One thing Kreese kind of touched on there was, when he says to Daniel that there's no such thing as a bad student, inferring that it's only bad teachers. And I think that's something that Daniel's character is kind of struggling with now. Like he's always had this sort of sense of moral righteousness when it's come to Miyagi-Do and self-defense and, the karate the right way, the way Mr. Miyagi taught him and whatnot. But now, given everything that's happened, given his student did what he did and everything else that's come out of that, as you put it, the aftermath or the name of episode 1, I think he's dealing with a lot of internal conflict and a lot of demons as well that he kind of needs to resolve or work through in this season.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's a lot of I'm excited to see all the other episodes. I'm kind of jealous that you've seen it all and you kind of know how it all unfolds, but I won't be too far away. Trust me.
There's no need for jealousy because you can literally stream it all tonight if you want to. Like, you have the freedom to do that with your Netflix subscription. But I mean, before we bring episode 1 of our analysis to a close, I mean, we can't get into episode 2 without talking about the closing scenes of episode 1. I mean, we had that scene where Johnny kind of he weasels his way into the hospital, into Miguel's hospital room by basically slamming his head into a hand dryer, and he's bleeding from his forehead. And
like it's crazy to think that someone could just walk into a kid's coma, like kids in a coma. You can just walk in, and then it's just funny. You see the nurse come in. She's like, "You meant to be here," and that was it. And he's like, "No, I'm leaving now," and he just left. And there was no issue. So it's just it's part of the show, like I said.
But it was interesting to note, something that the writers, I think, did quite well was, that scene where there's that monologue and Johnny is effectively, it's a monologue, but Johnny's talking to Miguel, who's in a coma. And at the same time, you've got the scenes of Miguel fighting the proverbial coma in his head, kind of overlaid. And as Johnny keeps talking, the music builds, and it's as if with Johnny's motivation, with his encouragement, Miguel will overcome the coma. But then he's interrupted by the nurse, right? So it's kind of like, oh, if he kept talking. But I think what they're trying to say there is this kind of like, dare I say it, spiritual bond, if you will, between Johnny and Miguel as his student. And Miguel, if he's going to get out of this, it's going to be with the tutelage and support of Johnny Lawrence.
Well, if I didn't watch the trailer and read some articles about how Miguel is obviously in season 3, I would have been a bit worried there in the first like 10 minutes or so when I think it was the police officer told Johnny Lawrence, he's like, haven't you, this kid's dead pretty much, right? So
what do you mean?
I'd be like, crap, so no, it's good. Like, you could tell you're setting up that episode for him to kind of obviously at the end open his eyes, and that was kind of the end of it, right?
There are some hairy moments, particularly towards I think it's episode it's episode 10. Like, there was this one moment where I said, no way, this can't be happening. So I'm not gonna give it away.
Don't ruin it. No spoilers.
Like my heart rate went up significantly. This particular thing happened. So something to look forward to in episode 10 for yourself, mate. But and of course, season 3, episode 1 closes with the great Miguel Diaz opening his eyes, overcoming the metaphorical coma in his head, overcoming that adversary, opening his eyes, and that's where they leave us all set for episode 2. So I am excited to rewatch this because I did binge it, but I am rewatching one episode a week the way I originally intended, so that we can bring our listeners weekly doses of our analysis, and also just a bit of, I don't know about you, but sometimes, even though I know exactly what's going to happen, I like listening back to other people talking about what happened and hearing about their analysis and everything else, particularly when it's something like Cobra Kai, which was such a well done TV show. So, unless you've got any parting thoughts, we might bring this bad boy to a close.
No, I'm just, I might just go and watch the other episodes now, man.
Do it. And not only that, but I actually watched Karate Kid 2 and 3.
There you go.
On the weekend, so we're recording this on a Tuesday. Just to refresh my memory, I mean, I'd seen Karate Kid 2 a number of times growing up, so I kind of knew what happened. But Karate Kid 3, even though I'd seen it maybe like 15 years ago, like I'd forgotten 90% what happened. So it was almost like I was watching it for the first time, which is kind of cool. And it was still good. Like, some people hang shit on Karate Kid 3. Now, look, if you're gonna hang shit on Karate Kid, mate, hang shit on the Jaden Smith.
I was gonna say, was that part of your viewing, the Jaden Smith one? No, okay.
No, I'm not gonna watch that. I mean, they literally refer to karate as kung fu in that film for some reason, even though they're two different disciplines. And there was also the next Karate Kid, which had a female.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Who
was the I'm thinking it was Hilary Swank, but it
I
probably wasn't. It's
believe
probably
it
someone else.
I believe it was Hilary
Was it? Yeah, I
Swank.
just
She was
vaguely
like
remember
16
her.
at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next Karate Kid, yeah, Hilary Swank. It still starred Pat Morita as
Oh yeah,
Mr.
nice.
Miyagi, but yeah, the next Karate Kid actually came out in 1994, so a good 10 years after the original Karate Kid.
Crazy how old it is, right? Far out.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. I mean, maybe Hilary Swank makes an appearance in Cobra Kai.
Who knows?
Maybe I'm calling
Maybe.
it for season 4. She's going to come back. Maybe even
Well,
LaRusso's girlfriend, even though I don't think they ever even kissed in
Yeah.
Karate Kid 3, because she was just going back to Ohio, I think.
Yeah.
And she just wanted to be friends, but ultimately maybe she'll make a reappearance. Who knows?
Well, it's an interesting fact. So you see, on each episode they show the executive producers, and Will Smith's always there. I don't know whether we've talked about this before.
Yes.
But you see Will Smith's name, and it's from what I read, it's because when they did the Jaden Smith one, it was
Yep.
Will Smith's kind of production company or something that I didn't purchase the rights to it, but like got some sort of share or agreement around the rights of Karate Kid. And
Yep.
now, yeah, they're obviously part of Cobra Kai because it falls under the Karate Kid banner.
Yeah.
Something along those
I think
lines.
when it comes to producers, like
They don't do anything.
a lot of them don't do anything. Like you have
Yeah.
your executive producers. Like for Cobra Kai, you've got Katrin Goodson and Bob Wilson, and then you've got like a whole. Sorry, they're the main producers. Then you've got a whole cast of like executive producers. So John Hurwitz and Josh Heald are pretty much the main guys. And then you have like James Lasseter. I believe he's from, is it Pixar?
Yeah.
James Lasseter, or is it Disney?
Let's have a look.
American film producer. I should know this, but it is escaping me right now.
He's an actor and Will Smith's longtime business partner.
Right. So him, Will Smith, and Kali Pinkett, which
is
yeah,
obviously, I think
Jada.
it's Jada Pinkett Smith's brother or something.
Yeah, Susan Atkins, a whole bunch of other people, Hayden Schlossenberg. But yeah, I wouldn't overplay the role that Will Smith is playing in this. But look, I'm going to look into that. And
I'm sure he does
episode
nothing,
2
but it's, to have his name on it, it just adds a bit more cred to it, I'm sure.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people who, I said we'd wrap this up, but somehow we keep going because it's so easy to keep going when you're talking Cobra Kai. But people like Elizabeth Shue, who played Ali with an I in the original Karate Kid. I think a lot of the articles I read about her coming back initially, I think there was a bit of skepticism about Cobra Kai. Would it just be this cheesy thing on YouTube Red?
Yeah.
I feel like there was a number of actors who initially were a bit standoffish about coming back, but now as they've seen it, as they've had an opportunity to watch it, as they've seen the critical response, and the credibility associated with the show, Will Smith and everything else, it's like, well, yeah, I totally want to be a part of this, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And not only that, but if you look at the reviews, like Rotten Tomatoes, Cobra Kai season 3, we're looking at the audience score of 93% and the critic score, the tomato meter, 94%
For season 3.
for season 3.
What about, can you see the comparison with season 2 and 1?
Yes, season 2 actually got a little bit less. Audience score
wow.
91%, tomato meter, critic score 89%, and season 1 got a critic score of, wait for it, drum roll,
100? No.
100%.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Which is, I didn't think that was possible. I thought as a critic, it's your job to kind of poke holes in things.
Big time.
But shit, 100%. And 95% audience score. So
Yeah,
look,
okay.
that is incredible across the board to maintain that strike rate across 3 seasons.
Well,
is
what I
fantastic.
find with these shows that, if this ends up going for like 7, 8 seasons, whatever it might be, usually they tape season 2 and 3 are when they hit their peak, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, they kind of go along, like tread along water, and then 6 and 7, it just kind of goes downhill, and then season 8 they get cut. It's pretty much what happens to a lot. Like think of like Entourage, all these shows.
Entourage
exactly,
kind of
like
faded
it hit
around
its
6,
it hit
7.
exactly hit its peak season 3, 4. Like storyline was dominating, and then I think they just run out of things, or they just can't maintain them.
Let's make another prediction then. So I've predicted
hear it.
that Hilary Swank reprises her role at some point. although half-heartedly. Maybe let's predict how many seasons we think that we're going to get of Cobra Kai.
I reckon we'll get 6. I reckon it'll be 6 seasons, 6 and done.
Well, I think I just need to be different. So I'm going to say 5 for some reason,
Yeah.
even though I would prefer more than less. Sometimes it's kind of like when an athlete hangs up the boots at just the right time rather than playing for an extra 7 or 8 years like Vince Carter or someone like that, long beyond their prime. You remember, I mean, regardless, I think you remember the good times, but you know, I think it's just best to leave when you're on top. Same with music,
for sure.
with a lot of bands who kind of have a farewell tour like Kiss had in 2001 and 2021. They're still touring, but not releasing too much new music.
Yeah.
So.
You rarely get any TV shows that go over, say, 7 or 8 seasons. Like you've got your, you know, there's the occasional, except for the Simpsons, which is like 400 seasons now. And yet Seinfeld went for a few, obviously, as well. And Friends and those kind of shows.
Was only about 6 or 7 years. Holy shit.
Was it really? Was that all?
It was, hang on,
we're going down the rabbit hole. Let's do it.
We're going down rabbit holes. So the Simpsons, first off.
It's like 28.
32 seasons.
32.
So they've been going strong since 1989. So that's 32 years. Now, obviously with the Simpsons, it's animation. So you don't have to worry about characters.
There's no ongoing storyline, right?
Old.
Yeah. You just watch them separately.
Exactly. And
standalone.
Yeah. I mean, what else? I mean, we've got a few in Australia here, like Neighbours and
but it's different still, right? They're soap operas, right?
They're soap operas, but still, I mean, for something to go for like 35 years, regardless of what format it is, it's still pretty impressive. I mean, you get these boring daytime soapies in the United States, like Bold and the Beautiful and Young and the Restless, which
they've been going for like 100 years, man.
Dude, like, and they still have the same characters. Like, I was forced to watch that stuff. I say forced because I don't want to admit that I willingly watched it when I was a kid, because I had a sister who was 8 years older than me, and I'm pretty sure characters that existed then. Like, I don't know how many of our listeners will know of Brooke and Ridge and these characters.
They're still there.
They're probably still there. They're probably playing the exact same roles, dealing with the exact same dilemmas. But for whatever reason, this daytime crowd still watch it, even in this time of Netflix and an abundance of choices at our disposal.
Yeah, that's it.
But
guilty pleasure for a lot of people, probably.
Indeed. Well, it's kind of like, you remember Passions?
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah. Same thing.
So
there was there are those shows where you can watch it today and then watch it in 6 years' time, and you'll be able to grasp the storyline straight away. Nothing would have changed. Just different characters playing the same people, right? 100%. Different actors.
Maybe even the same actors. I mean, that whole daytime soap crowd, they just put a lot of visits to the cosmetic surgeon's office, put it that way. So Seinfeld, 9 seasons.
Okay.
But on average, about 20 to 24 episodes per season. So you're looking at about 220 odd episodes.
Nice.
Whereas Cobra Kai, 10 episodes a season, a lot shorter. But the first season of Seinfeld was, I think it was 92, 93. Well, actually, no, 1990. But it was a short season. So I guess it was a pilot season of just 5 episodes. So it went for a good, 1989, 5th of July, 1989, the Seinfeld Chronicles. So it went for a good 9 years.
Wow.
Or 10 years, really.
Okay.
So that's pretty impressive. And look, if Cobra Kai goes for 10 years and 9 seasons, I will be very, very happy. Providing they maintain the quality, of course.
Yeah, well, that's always the challenge. But sounds like season 3's. I've got a lot to look forward to with season 3, which is pretty exciting.
Do indeed have a lot to look forward to, and I think we might wrap this bad boy up. If people want to subscribe to our show, we would much appreciate it, or leave a review wherever you happen to listen to it. And if you'd like to subscribe online, or rather find out a little bit more about our show and access show notes that we may diligently put together depending on the public response, just find us online at nofilter.media/Cobra Kai. Until next time, Shay, no mercy.
Awesome. See ya. Bye.
Come on, mate, you can do a little bit better than that.
No mercy. Let's do it. Strike first, strike hard, right?
No mercy.
No mercy.